Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Thursday evening, August 21st, 2008. Hello, I'm Bill Buckmaster. Tonight on Arizona Illustrated, the top charter school, estate planning in Arizona, extreme cinematography, and art scene spotlights cartoonist David Fitzsimmons. But first, a quick check of the Arizona News headlines. A judge ruled today that a statewide transit tax measure will stay off the November ballot. Arizona officials are going to use $5 million appropriated for state public education funding to pay for private school vouchers for disabled and foster children. A new report estimates that Arizona would have 93 fewer murders and nearly 4,000 fewer aggravated assaults if state high school graduation rates rose by 10%. An Arizona law requiring residents to show proof of citizenship in registering to vote and ID at the polls has been upheld by a federal judge. Governor Janet Napolitano says she is not disappointed that she is not being considered to be Barack Obama's running mate. Senator John McCain is spending a few days of so-called downtime from his campaign trail at his retreat outside of Sedona, and voters have until tomorrow to request an early ballot for the September 2nd primary election. Well, this week, Tucson's Basis Charter School was named the top charter school in Arizona. Earlier this year, Newsweek magazine named Basis Charter School, which was founded by two economists, as the top public school in the United States. More on all of this from Kimberly Kraft.
Take a sampling of students at Basis School and you find them singing a similar song.
I decided to have an open mind. It wasn't worth fighting my parents, and I found a lot of great people and a lot of great teachers in just the first few weeks.
Catherine Derrick started at Basis in 8th grade because, like other families, her parents liked the rigor of the school and the fact that students all pass the Ames test and 100% of graduating seniors receive acceptance to college. Derrick found it tough going, leaving the comfort of her elementary school and her old friends, but she says now she's changed her tune.
Everyone here is really, they find what they love and they're really driven to succeed and participate. And there's just this, everyone here has something in them that says, I want to be here and that I want to do this, whatever that subject is for them.
The charter school opened in 1998 because Michael and Olga Block couldn't find a curriculum to challenge their daughter in regular public schools. Michael Block considers the creation of the school serendipitous.
It was during that year that we decided, let's try an American version of the content-heavy European and Asian schools, but with the American openness and creativity.
That manifests itself in the classroom. 8th graders receive an early introduction to advanced placement classes, which they will all take in high school.
I want you to open the exam and look at the first page. This is only half the exam, by the way. The other half is multiple choice. This is 3 essays that you would be asked to write on the exam.
Part of this is our single-minded determination to create excellence, and we didn't let anything stop us. And there were a lot of advice from experts that you can't do this, that you can't create such a rigorous program so rapidly. And we just didn't listen. You know, we are arrogant and we are committed.
Block says that whereas in many public schools, social promotion moves students forward in spite of failure and without consequences, at Basis, students are expected to shoulder the responsibility of their own success. As senior Greg Kaith explains, failure simply isn't an option.
You cannot fall behind at Basis. They won't let you because the classes are so small, like you're in a class with 15, 20 students, and you can't fall behind because you know your teachers and your teachers know you, and if you forget to turn in an assignment, they'll ask you about it and they'll hassle you about it until you turn it in.
The school has a heavy focus on math and science, and all students must complete a placement exam to determine their level of competence in those subjects. Unlike public schools, the charter school doesn't offer algebra in the upper grades. These seniors study third-year college-level differential equations, and Matt Belanda can't get enough of it.
I love math.
Belanda spends part of every day tutoring others in math, but he doesn't consider himself a math nerd.
I think I've had an excellent education, even in the subjects that I tend to stay away from. I mean, I'm still doing well in those subjects. I know the information. If you ask me different things about history, I'll probably be able to tell you, even though like history and English are not my strongest subjects.
Students credit much of their success to excellent teachers recruited from across the country. Julia Taves gave up her pursuit of a PhD in English at Johns Hopkins because she found spending time scribbling her dissertation in a lonely garret less appealing than teaching. 5 years ago, she began teaching at Basis because she wanted to give students a more challenging experience than the one she had at a large public high school.
I think we've created an ethos in the student body such that it's absolutely cool to be interested in school, which it certainly wasn't when I was in that giant public high school. And so you have a totally different atmosphere in the classroom where students are eager to ask interesting questions. They want to be challenged. And any teacher will tell you that that is the greatest pleasure for a teacher.
Taves also serves as the school's college counselor, and even though the rigorous curriculum ensures collegiate success, the rating Newsweek magazine gave the school as the best in the nation certainly helps.
Now we have universities calling us all the time asking if they can come and visit and speak to our graduates, and they recognize our graduates as our program as having integrity, and thus our graduates as having integrity as scholars.
Block considers retaining great teachers one of his biggest challenges, yet also recognizes the reality of state politics that he says has denied equitable funding to charter schools. For that, he looks to fundraising in the private sector to raise the salaries of teachers so that the young ones stay and that those in the middle years of their careers don't look to become administrators. Yet he admits the school operates on the margin, but with very little reserves, he takes pride in the results.
We've transformed a lot of lives over the years in this school because there are a lot of people who came in and simply didn't expect ever to go to a school, which is in most respects better than any of the private schools in Arizona.
Many of those students, in spite of being forced by their parents to attend the Basis school, find themselves singing the praises of their education.
I can't rave enough about the people here. I found my best and closest friends here, not in the elementary school. I was so afraid to leave.
And that appears to be the basis of a beautiful friendship. For KUAT, I'm Kimberly Kraft.
For many, estate planning is one of those very important areas that too few people actually get around to doing. To better help understand wealth preservation, family protection, and succession planning, there's a new book titled Estate Planning in Arizona, What You Need to Know by Arizona attorney Donald Luce, who joins us now on Arizona Illustrated. Mr. Luce, good to see you.
Good to see you, Bill.
Why did you want to write this book about estate planning?
Well, first and foremost, there is a lot of misunderstanding about estate planning, and I wanted to provide a handbook for people interested in the subject so that before they see a lawyer, they'll have at least a modicum of knowledge concerning wills and trust and powers of attorney and all of the things that everybody needs to know about but don't have a place to go to find out about.
What's the starting point? What's the most important thing to have in mind before you even see an attorney or an estate planner?
You have to have a handle on why you need or want an estate plan. You have to know what you own, and you have to know what you want to do with it upon your death. So when you go in to see an attorney, the first thing the attorney is probably going to ask is, what would you like to have done with your estate upon your passing? And the book provides some, I think, thought-provoking ideas about what you might prepare yourself with before you go in to see a lawyer.
The big one's the big W, the will.
It is, and the will constitutes the foundation for every estate plan, whether you have a trust or not. And the reason the will is so important is because, first of all, a will is the only way by which a person can nominate a guardian for his or her minor children. A validly executed will serves essentially as an instrument by which a guardian is appointed. But more than that, any assets that the deceased owns at the time of death will pass either by the will to the beneficiary or by the will to a trust, or if there are no assets, then the will serves as a safeguard to make sure that if there is anything outside of trust, that it goes to trust.
And you talk about 10 common misconceptions about wills. Give us a few of those.
Well, the first misconception about a will is that if you don't have one, everything will go to the state. That's simply not true. If you don't have a will, then the state will decide where your property goes. But it won't go to the state, unless in that very rare case where you have no living relatives. Another common misconception about a will is that if you executed a will in another state and you moved to Arizona, that you automatically need to redo the will, and that's not true either. If you executed a will in a state and it was validly executed in the state in which it was executed, then it's going to be recognized in Arizona as a valid will.
How about writing out, you've heard stories, I'm sure, of people who have written out a will in longhand and it was not witnessed. That's a problem, isn't it? Or no?
No, actually it isn't. It would be a problem if the person signed a typewritten will without witnesses. But if a person writes out a will in longhand, then that person has probably created a valid holographic will, is what it's called, a handwritten will. And witnesses, interestingly, are not required for that type of a document.
Okay, from wills, where do we go next? We hear a lot about health care directives, and those are so important right now.
They are. In addition to having a will that contains your last wishes, you also ought to have, at the very least, a medical power of attorney and a living will. And the reason you should have those documents is because during periods of incapacity or disability, you would want others to have the authority to make decisions on your behalf concerning your health care, and you would also want your wishes known as to the use of life-sustaining procedures and so forth. And so the only way to do that is to execute these related documents, which together comprise an estate plan.
And there's also a mental health directive too, correct?
There is indeed. By executing a mental health directive, you can effectively appoint someone to make mental health decisions on your behalf if you're not able to, including treatment decisions, which is pretty extraordinary. But that is, under Arizona law, something that every one of us has the ability to do, provided we're 18 or older and of sound mind.
And power of attorney is very important, the financial end of everything.
Yes, a power of attorney, sometimes called a durable power of attorney, sometimes called a general power of attorney, is simply an instrument executed by you or I, appointing a third person to act on our behalf in matters financial. And with a validly executed power of attorney, that person that we appoint could effect transactions in our name and do things for us that we otherwise would be required to do ourselves.
We don't have time to get into all the other aspects dealing with trusts. Those are very important, and there's so many other things. What about where to keep these documents? Who should have these documents? If you've got now the will and the health care directives, do you keep them in a lockbox, or where do they go?
That's a very good question. Most people would, I believe, answer yes, you keep them in a lockbox, but the best place is not a lockbox, and I'll say why. A person who puts their will and their powers of attorney in a lockbox creates a situation where it may be difficult to find and then access those documents when they're needed. The best place to keep those documents is at home. Keep those documents with your other important papers, where you have your life insurance policies, where you have your other personal writings. You should also have your will, your powers of attorney, and your medical directives.
Great information. Don Luce, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
The name of the book is Estate Planning in Arizona by attorney Donald Luce, and this book is available on Amazon and locally at the Barnes & Noble outlet here in southern Arizona. One of Hollywood's top aerial stunt photographers is based right here in Tucson. More on that from Luis Carrion.
This story begins here at the Stewart Observatory Mirror Lab. This is the place that is responsible for creating some of the world's largest and most advanced telescope mirrors in the world.
I honestly don't know of any others that build mirrors the way that we do. There are other places that make large mirrors. I don't think anybody's doing it, quite like this, and the scale that we're doing it.
The people that work here are scientists and engineers, and they are all generally well-grounded individuals and extremely competent working in the state-of-the-art equipment that is housed here.
Yeah, so in the command string, in the configuration. My name is Greg Gasson. I'm a software engineer here at Stewart Observatory, and I basically write software to monitor forces, temperatures, whatever needs to be looked at when we're polishing mirrors and testing mirrors.
However, Greg Gasson, who has been part of the Mirror Lab team since 2002, is often thinking about his real passion in life outside of the lab. Greg is at the peak of a second career as an extreme stunt cinematographer. Put his name into a YouTube search and you quickly get a sense of the extreme nature of this otherwise mild-mannered engineer.
So when I'm not writing code, my passion is skydiving cinematography and extreme cinematography. I have a little different view on how I like to film things. A lot of times you'll see footage where it's just more like you're looking at it static, you're an observer, What I want to do is, when people watch my footage, I want them to feel that they're there and that they're part of the journey. I like things that are very dynamic. So that's more my take on filming, is just to involve the people that are watching it.
His death-defying feats include, among many, the only successful jump from one moving plane into another one without the use of a parachute.
Initially, I was just interested in stunt work and started doing some stunts and things like that. And then a friend of mine asked me if I'd be interested in filming her for a world championship. And as it turned out, she hurt her back. I wasn't able to compete with her that year, so I wound up filming somebody else. And that year won second place. And then I thought I was going to be done with competition, and then the world champion asked me if I would film her. So for 2 years we competed and won the world championship twice. I thought I was done again, then worked another 4 years with another friend. And yeah, so it's just a lot of competing.
A two-time world champion skydiver, he has now devoted himself to perfecting a unique style of shooting that makes him a sought-after cinematographer. Greg's expertise and extreme sense of adventure has been featured on several programs. His work has also been part of several Hollywood productions, as well as one particular Bollywood film where he actually had a somewhat prominent role. As you might expect, the storyline soon had him engaged in the free-fall hand-to-hand battle to the death.
I think for me the attractive thing about filming is trying to capture something beautiful on film. A lot of things that you see in the media these days, it's kind of generic, I just want to capture something beautiful and something that people wouldn't typically see or even think about, for that matter.
In his day job, Greg is often worried about the minute details of a multi-million-dollar mirror casting. And he's quick to point out that it's that same attention to detail that is required for a successful stunt production.
Yeah, especially for stunt work and when you're doing extreme things, you have to have so much attention to detail. You really want to make sure that what you're doing is not going to hurt or kill you or anybody else. So it's not just some wild, crazy thing, that we run out and do. There's a lot of thought and preparation that goes into the stunt work.
For KUAT, I'm Luis Carrion.
Hi, I'm Mark McLemore, host of the radio news magazine Arizona Spotlight. Tomorrow we look ahead to the new school year at the University of Arizona and a look back at the life of swimming pioneer Annette Kellerman. Arizona Spotlight is heard every Friday at 8:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. on KUAZ.
Tonight's edition of Art Scene spotlights award-winning cartoonist David Fitzsimmons of the Arizona Daily Star. Art Scene is produced by Soo-Yan Lee.
My colleagues labor over writing profound, meaningful, well-crafted editorials, have to engage in complex arguments to make their point. Where I, as a cartoonist, I can simply say, bleh. A cartoonist simply gets to point, ridicule, laugh, mock, and engage in wrong, adolescent, immature behaviors because readers like it. That's why. My name is Dave Fitzsimmons. I'm a cartoonist. I always feel uncomfortable when I say that because, well, I feel enormous shame because some people have real jobs, but I simply wake up every morning, read the newspaper, find something that makes me highly irritated, and then I daydream about it, and then I doodle, and then I put it into the computer and send it off and await hate mail. It's a great job. I was born under a B-52, conceived in Arroyo and raised by coyotes. That's not true. I was born in Merced, California, on an Air Force base. So they say. How did I get started as a cartoonist? A number of ways. Sort of a simultaneous convergence of bizarre talents. Number one, I was politicized at an early age by my dear brothers and my father. My father was a Master Sergeant in the Air Force. Both of my brothers served in beautiful, exotic Vietnam. So when all my other friends were learning about sports and statistics about ball players, I was learning about Richard Milhous Nixon and Watergate and Vietnamization and things like that. The second convergence was a sense of humor, and I acquired that thanks to my parents' difficult lives. They both grew up in poverty, and they both had a resilient sense of humor. And then when I was a teenager, they both became ill with cancer, and they died a month apart in when I was in my 20s. And my sister and I nursed them both into death. And from them, I learned the value of an inappropriate, health-giving sense of humor. How's this? What do you think? Should they be on or off?
Try not to do that. We'll
Messing with the lighting, man. I am a news junkie. I'm fascinated by politics, and I think I am driven by this fantasy that perhaps one day that elected public servants will behave in a constructive manner. So I guess I'm always searching, undefeated by futility and hopelessness.
Well, there's a great headline. 2 killed, 1 seriously.
I do a lot of public speaking. The majority of it is on behalf of the Arizona Daily Star. I very much enjoy doing it. For one thing, it keeps me rooted in the real world outside of the newsroom. Story time. Pennypacker. He's a governor. When? 1902. Why is he important? Because he didn't like cartoons. I'll tell you why he didn't like cartoons, because Pennypacker was a crook, thief, and a scoundrel. A little man with a huge nose. Whenever cartoonists drew him, they would draw him as a parrot. And he so hated these cartoons, he went to his lawmakers, asking them to make it a crime to ever draw an elected official as an animal. Within a week, an editorial appeared in a Philadelphia newspaper depicted as a fruit.
That looks like an apple.
It does. He drew him as a fruit. Well, I really deserved the cancer I got because I've been joking about it for years when I would do stand-up. And here's the irony, right? When I do stand-up, I'd always uncap markers and I'd sniff the markers. Joke, hey, people ask me, where do you get your cartoon ideas from? These babies, that's why they call them magic markers. Well, and I would joke about the family health and how I felt I was a ticking time bomb. And wow, boom, it finally happens. The physician asked me, did you smoke? Well, no. And he said, well, you know, typically it's tobacco smokers who get bladder cancer. See, what else could it be? Well, study in England says that people exposed to aniline dyes and aromatic inks sometimes get bladder cancer. All those years of the magic marker. Oh, baby, I love this thing. It's like, what irony, what rich irony. But today I'm fine, clear of the cancer. It'll probably recur, which is fine because I see that as sort of revenge against my health insurance company, that I'm going to survive and keep going back. Surgeries, treatments, surgeries, treatments, surgeries, treatments. Get my money's worth out of that health insurance. When people see my work, I want them to come away with two things, because my work is inconsistent. Some days I want people to take lightly an issue that they take too seriously. I think it's dangerous when we take some issues too seriously. Ask any Shiite and Sunni in downtown Baghdad on a Saturday. Whoa, dude, you're taking that issue far too seriously. Just kidding. And the second thing, when my cartoons are politically serious, I have this very misguided point of view that I'm actually going to change a mind. There's a man named Charlie Cook, who's a CNN pollster, analyst, god, and he said something interesting. He said, Republicans are born Republicans, and liberals, Democrats, tend to be born Democrats, and they both remain that way, typically throughout their lives. The two groups that really are swayed from time to time are independents and the ill-informed. So it's my hope that the independents and ill-informed might be persuaded by a cartoon from time to time to maybe see a fresh perspective on an issue.
Our website is azpublicmedia.org, azpublicmedia.org, and click on TV. Also, if you missed any of the program, Arizona Illustrated repeats at 12:30 and 5:30 tomorrow morning. Coming up tomorrow night on Arizona Illustrated, commentary on the Friday Night Roundtable, plus our Newsmaker interview with Tucson City Manager Mike Hein. I'm Bill Buckmaster. Thanks for watching. See you next time.